If I had to pick a winner on year one, it would be Buffalo on last year. Obviously, they were in the playoffs. The Colts just missed. The Rams guys were still young. Year 5, maybe a difference. See, year 7 and year 8, Cornelius is still an impact player. Dickerson may be retired. The difference is that Cornelius was, you know, 22, 23 years old, where Dickerson was a 5-year veteran.
But you bring up, I think, the most important factor in this thing, Chris, is when you're talking about one player versus 5 players. And if something did happen to that one player, where's your insurance policy? If one of those receivers goes down for the Rams, you still got 4 other guys that you can spread out the wealth and help your football team. These 2 guys definitely are the best at what they do. But if your Dickerson goes down or a Bennett goes down, well, you've got a gaping hole with nobody to stick their finger in the dike to stop it from breaking on you. So, you know, I just really got to believe that if you're going with more players, more quality players, and not having to give up a lot of your own choices to do that, you have to have benefited from that trade. Cornelius benefited.
How many times have we heard it, though? A trade that helps both clubs, or a trade that helps all clubs. In this case, there were no losers. In this case, there were no losers, and often you can't say that about
and we are talking about the premier rusher in football. We're not talking about a guy, you know, one ball player. We're talking about a ball player who may be well worth 2 or 3 good to just above average ball players.
It'll be fun to see if, well, of course, Bennett and Dickerson in the same division, but if the Rams get into a Super Bowl in the next few years against one of these other teams, that would be interesting as well. When we return, before we return, the real inimitable one, Tom Mees, will be by with an update. We'll be back to New York in a moment.
Like a lot of business people, I thought all insurance companies were the same.
And the Rams have had 4 picks. They took Cleveland Gary out of Miami, a running back, Frank Stamms out of Notre Dame, an inside linebacker, Brian Smith out of Auburn, outside linebacker, defensive end type, and then just a few minutes ago they took Darrell Henley, a cornerback out of UCLA. And John, going in, you needed an inside runner, you needed some pass rush, you needed inside linebackers and a cornerback, and you seem to have hit the jackpot here.
Well, the picks we've had seem to fit what we wanted. Hawkins and Smith, big guys, 6'6" type people, outside pass rushers. We love the way Frank Stamms played this year. He's just an attacking type of linebacker. Cleveland Gary, a surprise for us being there. We had him in the Senior Bowl and loved the way he caught the football and ran the ball inside. Darrell Henley is one of the best punt returners in the country, which is a need for us as well as a cover corner.
Let's talk about the Eric Dickerson trade. Now you've put it to rest. I'm sure there's kind of a bright spot for you guys, probably tired of hearing about that Eric Dickerson trade. How do you feel about the picks that you got in the past 2 years and the Eric Dickerson trade and losing Eric?
Well, of course, the whole thing was traumatic for us. Since that time, our team has taken a new direction. I think everybody's benefited. The Buffalo feels good about what happened to them. The Colts feel great about Eric. Eric's continuing his great career, and things are good for us. The exact numbers of who we got from Buffalo, who we got, it doesn't matter to us. But we feel positive about our team.
Let me ask you about Mike Gooman and Carl Eckhern. Gooman, a running back, Eckhern now an aging linebacker for you guys. You have drafted in both of those areas, and they were thought that maybe they were going to retire if you did get some quality people in those positions. Has that situation changed since this morning?
Well, we are going to talk to both men. I think they're both at that point where the decision is coming. We filled some of those holes in the draft, but we're going to wait and talk to the men early next week.
You had talked about the Rams, the direction they're going. You feel like these players, you were talking 8, 10 years, you were trying to build out for the future. The Rams becoming younger and younger. Do you feel like you're accomplishing that?
Oh, definitely. We're going to have 26 where we would classify as young players on our squad, 25, 26, 27, somewhere in that area, which probably is the most in the NFL. We're solid at quarterback, and so I think there's a chance that we can be contenders for some period of time. These young men have to develop and fit into spots and contribute, but I think they're going to.
All right, John, thanks a lot. Okay, good luck the rest of the draft. We'll have more of ESPN's coverage of the 1989 NFL Draft after these words.
Began the third round a few moments ago with Mark Stepnoski, offensive lineman from Pittsburgh. Green Bay's third-round pick, Matt Brock, defensive end from Oregon. Detroit picked a guy I kind of like. Big, huge, 6'6.5", 300-pound, listed as tackle, but can play guard, Mike Utley from Washington State. You kind of like him. He can move, which will help in that run and shoot. Kansas City picked a wide receiver in the 3rd round, Naz Worthen, who you've seen earlier today because he's been down. There's Naz on the left of your screen right now. And on the right side of your screen is Derrick Hill, who was just picked up by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 3rd round, the wide receiver from Arizona. So Naz, wide receiver, NC State on your left, a Chief. Derrick Hill, wide receiver from Arizona on your right from Pittsburgh. And so a couple more of the wide receivers are going with Atlanta with the next one to pick. It is interesting as we get toward these rounds. You may have heard of a trade a couple days ago that the Bears traded 1 pick. They got, what was it? Philadelphia gave their 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th to the Bears for the Bears' 3rd round pick. Now, maybe that's because Buddy has a horse running at Keystone tomorrow and he doesn't want to pick. Or maybe it's because the Philadelphia Eagles are one of those teams, Joe and Tommy, that have a lot of players on their roster. And with the new 80-man rules, Joe, to take in effect, June 1st? A little earlier than normal. You can't stockpile as many players. So the Eagles figure, why draft them if we're not going to keep them?
3 teams last year had players, 150 players under contract. Dallas, Denver, and the Jets had 150 players under contract trying to bring them to camp. That's not going to happen anymore. I'll run down this as you ran through the supplemental.
Yeah.
This rule,
it's your turn.
This rule has changed coaches and general managers' approach to the seasons. It's going to change coaches' approaches because now they have to change their practice schedules. They no longer can have guys on injured reserve that you can practice all year and bring back when you want, fake injuries and have players around. It's not going to happen. They have to be cut down by June 1st by no more than 80 players under contract. Roster cut down to 60 players after the 3rd preseason game, which is August 29th, and then a roster cut down to 47 players Monday, September 4th, prior to the regular season opener. The regular season roster will be 45 players plus 2 inactives, and a developmental squad of 6-player maximums per club established after the final cut of 47, compromising only of rookies and first-year players. One key thing, if a player is placed on injured reserve during the preseason, he may not return to the same club all year. That's going to be the kicker for all of them. He also may not practice. So if you lose a guy in the preseason, a good player, your starter, you have to keep him on the active roster. So you may wind up only dressing 42, 41 players as the year goes on. So it's going to change coaches' approaches to how they're going to practice. The teams that have got veterans that have good work habits, they're going to be fine. The guys that have guys that sort of want to take some time off and they don't go out there and work, they're not going to have the bodies to throw around out there anymore and fill in the holes while the stars only play on Sunday.
You know, you handle that better, I think, than I did the supplemental draft. But don't let it go to your head. Yeah, right? Yeah, don't let it go to your head. Please, that's all we need. Tommy, hey, we're all getting loose. What the heck? It's been a long day for us. Tommy, it's interesting. Out at the owners' meetings, one of the men that kind of put this through, not pushed it through because it was voted on, was the owner, your owner, because you own the team when you play there, the Denver Broncos, Pat Bowlen. Pat then kind of wrinkled, whatever I'm looking for, drew the ire of some other owners when 2 days later, after putting in the 80-man roster rule because to try and keep expenditures down, at offering Bruce Smith a contract, which then Buffalo eventually matched. Not asking you to judge on that, but all I'm saying is it's very hard. It puts really more of a premium on these draft picks. Because if you're a good team, it's hard to keep your players. I mean, you have more than 80 players.
Well, it puts more of a premium on the draft picks, and I think that the situation with Mr. Bowlen was one where he so much needed Bruce Smith that he had to go out on a limb. I don't think we will see him do that with any other player in this league. The thing that I'd like to comment on, and Joe explained this to me, he's a quarterback, explained it to a linebacker, is the fact that the developmental players that you'd like to bring in, that you'd like to come work along and bring along slowly, will no longer exist.
And the teams, the good team, through that and also the free agent thing, which wrecked Houston, you've got to be really careful. You can't stash players anymore. So,
well, one thing we talked about is that June 1st date now all of a sudden becomes like the old August 1st date. There are no so-called prospects or projects in existence anymore for coaches and general managers. You've got to take proven players.
You got to make decisions a little earlier, which means if you want to hit the links, you don't have as much time to do that. And you got to make some personnel decisions, which is why you stay in this and not be a coach, Joe. We'll come back with more at the NFL draft in just a moment. For emergency travel assistance worldwide, it's everywhere you want to be. And by Burger King, where we do it like you do it.